across this guy on TikTok, which he's become very like seen lately and heard. And he was given like an analogy of saying like you're dating somebody and somebody is trying to talk to you, and you go back to your significant other and saying this person is saying this, that, and the fourth about me, and then the boyfriend is saying, well, did you block them? And you say, well, no, because I would feel bad or something like that, and then changing it to like you having a relationship with God and the devil is doing this, that, and the fourth, for you tell God about it, and like God is saying that you block him and you have nothing to say to it. And so he said how he was reading James chapter 4, and he came across a verse that was talking about submit yourself unto the Lord and the devil will flee, right? And he was saying like, I don't understand this. Lord, you said if I surrender to you, that the devil will flee. It seems like the closer I've gotten to you, the more the devil nitpicks with me, which if you notice, that is a situation a lot of us tend to encounter. When you try to get a closer relationship with God, the devil begins to try to interfere because he sees you're creating that relationship with God, and he doesn't want you to create that relationship with God, because the more that you create this relationship with God, the more he knows that there's a less likely chance that he's able to, get you, trap you. That's all I say. And so, his mind is like, I don't get it. You said this, but why am I dealing with this? And he was like saying that a few minutes later, the Lord like responded and said, because you didn't surrender to me. Now, why did that catch my mind? Well, because earlier, okay, that's on TikTok. I watched a video on Instagram, and this guy, he's a really well spoken guy. He was talking about surrendering. And he was basically saying what it looks like to surrender. And that's what he gets into in this video. And he was like, okay, well, I learned that the reason the devil is still bothering me is because I didn't fully surrender to you. And he's talking about the forgiveness, walking in Jesus's image and things of that nature. And it kind of correlates with what the guy was saying about what it looks like to surrender. What a lifestyle of surrendering looks like. But in general, the flat line of where I just was like, okay, for the simplest understanding of it, to surrender to God, it would be moving away from the worldly things. What does that mean? Well, if you go to Revelations chapter 3, verse 15, I'll say 15 through 16, that is most prominent here. I know your deeds, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. Now, what does that mean? Lukewarm. You have one foot in God, one foot in the world. Well, if you surrender to God, you take that foot out of the world and you put everything in God. So now nothing of you is of this world. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? So if I'm going to surrender to God, to surrender to God, I get rid of all my earthly desires. I get rid of everything that makes me less like Jesus. And what makes me less like Jesus? Wanting and holding these behaviors and these desires of the world. Because remember, to have desires of the world and desires of God is to be lukewarm. You can't surrender if you want both. What does he say? He says, he says, I wish you were either one or the other. Pick. If you're choosing both, you're not surrendering. You don't know if you're ready to pick one or the other. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm losing you. And so the reason a lot of us are dealing with a lot, especially, and I'll bring this up because I feel like this is an important topic, depression. A lot of us is dealing with like depression, and depression is really bad right now. You got depression and suicide. Now, why do you think it's really bad? Well, a real straightforward explanation is the end of time. The end of time is here. He trying to get his people. The devil is out here trying to get his people. He like, okay, the clock is ticking. He's acting like, okay, I was upstairs watching somebody play a game, a horror Santa Claus game, and like they had a time, and like Santa Claus is on the time limit, and he like, oh, I gotta deliver these presents. I got like an hour. And so the devil is on the time limit. He's like on a time limit. He's like, okay, I got this much time left, and I want to get X amount of people. And so why do you think depression, this spirit of depression, this spirit of suicide, the spirit of fear, the spirit of confusion, the spirit of anxiety, the spirit of laziness, procrastination, why do you think it's so heavy? At a certain time, you got to be able to open your eyes and look at the spiritual aspect. Nothing about this is physical. You need to look at the spiritual aspect. We are all dealing with spiritual warfare. The end of time is here. It's increasing, which lets you know there is no time to play around. There's time for you to choose one or the other. And this is what brings me back to surrendering. What does it look like to surrender? You have to take that foot out of the world and put all of yourself in God. You have to be willing to let go of yourself. Let go of who you are. Let go of everything of this world that, I don't know, makes you, and put your all into God. That is what it looks like to surrender. You're denying yourself. Do you remember that? In order to follow Christ, you have to deny yourself and pick up your cross. And how can you deny yourself and pick up your cross if you got that foot in the world and foot in God? And so you got to take that foot out. I feel like, I don't know, I think I'm just yapping because I don't think I'm making a point. But if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. I pray that the Lord will give you understanding, clarification, understanding that defies all understanding, and that he opens your eyes, because our eyes need to be open. We need to understand at this point in time, we're not fighting with physical things. We're fighting with spiritual things, things that you cannot see. We're battling with things that you cannot physically touch, but it's there, right? You feel me? Okay, this video is longer than what I expected, but I hope y'all picked up what I was putting down. I don't know if that made sense, but we're in a time where we need to understand that in order to create that bond with God, to have that security with God, to kind of win that battle with the devil, you got to understand that it is time to surrender. It is time to let go of those earthly desires and the things of this world and go to God, fully in God. One thing to also add to that, that'll make it easier for you to take that foot out of the world and put it in God, fully in God, is understanding in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 6 through 7. But godliness with content is great gain, for we brought nothing into this world and we can take nothing out of it. What does that mean? Why do you value things of this world? Is when you die, you don't take anything. You came here with nothing. When you got here, you earned everything. You think everything you earned on this world is going to go with you when you leave? I don't know if that made sense. I just wanted to say that. When you start to understand that this world have things that have no genuine value, even in death, then it might be easier for you to surrender your life and give it to God. Now, by no means am I perfect, and by no means have I mastered this, but I'm working on it. But I want to make sure you are too. I love you, but God loves you more.